I'm Jim Check. With me, Ian Burns, our managing editor, all the way out there in the nation's capital. Beautiful day here in the Okanagan. Absolutely spectacular, beautiful fall day. You ready to rumble? Liberals in chaos as automaker drives south. Is Melanie Joly okay? Climate targets jeopardize power stability. Hodgson touts carbon capture. More data supports Canadian economic winter. BC health crisis, shocking. And Democrats imploding in the United States. And Carney promises new measures to combat crime. All that and a lot more on this really big show. We're going to kick it off, though, right away with our favorite. Oh, no, we're going to kick it off something else. You put something else in here. This is
you served your spot. That's because the Prime Minister is going to say something very important very soon, so we should probably talk about that.
Okay, so you kick it off then. The Prime Minister there, Carney, talked about new measures to combat crime, protect Canadians, build safer communities.
Well, I'll start it off with the quote that he sent out, because this is, you'll see this news everywhere. It's a press release that came out of the Prime Minister's office, and it includes quotes from all kinds of people, including Gary and Anders Sangri and Champagne and all our favourite friends. But there's one quote in there, and I want you to guess who said this. It's, in Canada, you should be able to wake up, get in your car, drive to work, come home and sleep soundly at night. When laws repeatedly fail to protect those basic rights, we need new laws. And it goes on and on. Who does that sound like to you?
Pierre Poilievre?
Indeed. Yeah. And yet, for some reason, this statement of Pierre Poilievre's, it might as well be, is attributed to the Right Honourable Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney. And basically, if you're wondering what this is the Liberal Party boffins who've sat in a room for a number of months and thought, how do we push back against Pierre Poilievre on crime? Because he's doing a good job and people like what they're hearing.
Same thing.
And this is it.
Same
so
thing.
It means...
Copy the homework.
So they're going to introduce legislation next week, and it's going to target violent and repeat offenders. And it's going to be about auto theft, breaking and entering, human trafficking, everything really that Pierre Poilievre has been going on about. And it's going to change bail, so they say at least, introduce consecutive sentencing, harsher penalties for organised retail theft. Organised, of course, spelled wrong with an S. Restricting conditional sentences for certain sexual offences, and also an extra 1,000 Mounties, which will cost $1.8 billion, apparently.
Well, putting aside that it's Pierre Poilievre's plan, which is great. I mean, he did say, Poilievre did say, copy my homework. And so I would say, great. If this actually happens, then it'll be good for Canadians, because Canadians shouldn't have to, like the Toronto police said, put your keys at the front door so they don't come into your house, further into your house to disturb you in your bedroom. We shouldn't have that. Like and then Sean Fraser pushing those other bills in front of this. This is, it doesn't make any sense to me why this isn't the front and center piece that should have been front and center before anything else. That what do people mainly want in life? They want to be able to put food on the table. If you talk about our basic functions, then you want security, right? Like if you're back to our basic functions and basic needs is security. And they failed at this miserably. I mean, the Kelowna mayor, Tom Dias, sent a letter saying that we have just a few offenders that are responsible for most of the cases that just keep going in and out. And he had, again, we'll say this over and over on this show, 32 failures to appear. How many does it take for the judge to hold him in custody until his court date? How many? Is it? And I've asked this of many MLAs, and I've asked it of Macklin McCall, a former RCMP. Is it 50? Is it 100? How many times does the judge need to look down and say 32 failures to appear? Yeah, you go ahead. Here's your court date. I don't get it. Like, and Sean Fraser
like that one,
to look Canadians in the eye and say internet safety is first, right?
Yeah, get those the menace of the swastikas that we just see
guys.
everywhere.
Get the mean
but
guys.
There's that other
right?
one where the judge even, like, his comments were published, where it was a guy, a trucker, I believe, wasn't it, who'd killed 2 people, including a child, or was accused, I should say, sorry, of having done that in an accident. Yeah. And then he left the bloody country. He left Canada and then was arrested in Toronto a few months later. And then the judge has him here for a bail hearing, and he says, oh yeah, I don't think it's going to undermine the public's trust in our justice system if I let this guy out on bail. Who are these people? That's another question. And this is again where Doug Ford has talked the talk, but probably would never walk the walk. But he said, like, look at these judges. Who the hell are these people? Who the hell are these people that we're paying like $400,000 a year to do stupid things like that? Unforgivably stupid things like that. Who on earth are these people?
I'm going to say this again and again. The Democrats and the liberals are the same thing, and it's the same stuff going on there. You just carbon copy, just a cheaper version of it here in Canada. We see the same things happening down in the United States. The Democrats, what they did to the United States and what they continue to do with this. That guy that beat up Big Balls, I mean, there was a group of people that beat him up, like on the street there, and they just got the sentence yesterday, and it was, oh yeah, I mean, they said they're sorry, so that's good enough, right?
Yeah. Well, now that judge, Elon Musk called that judge a racist, I think. It's like, there's a reaction to that in the United States that you would never get.
You wouldn't get here.
You wouldn't get in this country. Yeah.
So there's a change happening there, and we're going to show you later. Stick around for the show because it's good. The Democrats are in full meltdown, and we need that to happen here to the liberals. I mean, they need what we're missing here is it's me and Ian, the two guys, like chirping away here, but we need a national media or help us like and share this so that we can actually get at them, because like, how many interviews do we ask for with the liberals and how many do we get? We don't even get emails answered. Like, unbelievable. I was doing an interview yesterday with Peter Millibar, the MLA here, criticizing the we'll talk about it later, the Kamloops health crisis there. Well, all the OBGYNs resigned at the same time in Kamloops Royal Inland Hospital. And, like some of the people chirping there is like, oh, all you interview is conservatives. You must get paid by them. I said, we would interview all the NDP and liberals we could get our hands on. Go ahead and get us some.
Well, I sent an email, I think it's maybe my fourth request. don't know for sure, to have an interview with Josie Osborne, Health Minister in British Columbia, a video interview. We have had her on the phone for 3 minutes or something like that during the pediatric crisis in Kelowna, but that's not quite the same thing. Anyway, and the response that I got was, she's going to do a media briefing, or she's going to speak to the media I think it was like in an hour. Here's the phone number. So I can call in with a dozen other journalists, and maybe if I'm lucky, she can dodge two questions that I could ask her. No follow-up
questions, no nothing. That's what I mean. It's control of the messaging, and it's absolutely ridiculous. And most of the time, the only people that get to ask questions in those media scrums is the government-funded or government-corrupted media that will be the CTV, CBC, and Global.
Well, and it's also literally like, just watch the press conferences. These are literally like the friends of the politicians. Watch David Eby, where he's talking to the guy from Global, whose name I can't remember, Richard something. He almost always like, oh, hey, Richard, like, how you doing? And it's like, they know each other. They're like chums, and they're the ones that get to ask the questions. The last time I called in to one of these, they hung up on me. The line just went dead before I could even ask a question. So it's kind of like, thanks,
I've called into, and we've asked for interviews, and we did get a credit to Brenda Bailey. I asked, and I even asked her personally for the interview. Must have asked like 10 times. They're people, and they promised us 30 minutes, 20 minutes, and then finally they gave us 10, and I squeezed out, I think, 12 or 13 minutes before she said she had to go. But I mean, thankfully we got those few minutes, and I did agitate her a bit. But I mean, ask questions. How do they get better? They only get better by actually being held accountable. And then somebody says you politicize this, and this is what they do all the time. Is they say, oh, you're politicizing it. Then share the information. They're the ones politicizing all this stuff. They politicize it by not sharing the information. But we don't want to rant too much. But Melanie Joly, let's play this clip first on poor Melanie here.
Well, let me be clear on Stellantis. I'm extremely disappointed about this decision, and not only am I disappointed, it's completely unacceptable. So we will fight for these jobs. We will fight for the jobs at Brampton. We'll fight for the jobs that were committed by Stellantis, and we'll fight for our auto sector. I've been in contact with Lana Payne, the head of Unifor, yesterday and today. I've been in contact with Flavio Volpe, who's an important voice in the sector. We've been working hand in glove also with the Ford government, and we're one strong Team Canada together. And the company has commitments under different types of agreements with the government, including the fact that we provided support for the retooling of the very Brampton facility that right now is sitting idle. So we will make sure that we push the company and we hold them to account. Well, let me be clear on.
That's good. Did you read the letter that she wrote? I put it in here. We can, if we can put the letter up here. Do you have that letter there? So it goes from basically begging to whining to threatening to begging to whining to threatening. I don't know who wrote it, but somebody, like, it has multiple personalities. It's just, it's and then plus they publish it as you know, as they wrote it, which is again a desperate move. You're publishing a letter. Usually these things are leaked so they don't look so bad. You know what I mean? Like, they don't actually publish the letter. But you can tell that they're flailing if they're actually, here's the letter to, because it doesn't say on the bottom, and this is one of the things, you know, like Stellantis could argue about. Does it say carbon copy the world? Do you know what I mean on the bottom? This letter goes, do you know what I mean? It doesn't, it says, you know, it's carbon copy to Jeff Hines. You should put up the second page there. It doesn't say carbon copy, you know, the internet. But it just shows, it shows the desperation. Usually the way they do this is they will leak the document, right? So then they can say, oh, it wasn't us that actually released this document. So, but it is one of the weakest letters I've ever seen. I'm sure the lawyers at Stellantis are going like, send back a notice that says, EV mandate, we've warned you. We've warned you repeatedly on the EV mandate. We've warned you, we've talked to you. You don't listen, you don't acknowledge, you just continue down the same path. I did a really good post.
Carbon tax would be another one probably that they could
industrial carbon
complain
tax, about. No certainty, more regulation, and you got to fit into this climate religion, but the liberals are pushing. And then so Stellantis is, which is, you know, a company that's already kind of on the ropes. They're not in great stead. And you think they're going to waste billions of dollars here when they got an EV mandate hanging over their heads, which the liberals will not kibosh. And they don't make good EVs. So what do you want?
But I think the worst thing here that I can see is that she's mentioning, she did in that little interview, but also in this letter, she's mentioning the billions of dollars that Canadian taxpayers have given to Stellantis because of the Liberal Party deciding that was a wise thing to do. And she's trying to say, like, that's your obligation. It's like almost like that's your fault. It's like they didn't force you to give them that money. I think really, if we want to assign responsibility, it's you. You're the one that should explain why you gave billions of dollars to a failing company and then created a sort of regulatory environment in which they felt that they were being strangled and that they couldn't operate.
I would
Surely
advise
that's got to
people,
be at your door, Melanie.
I would advise people to go and read this letter and just kind of read it, and then it's so easy to critique because it's just like it seems like this person is going through like an emotional rapture as they're writing it. I mean, it's just like it goes through like just like begging, whining, like a threatening, and then back to begging, whining, pleading, like. Holy cow.
I could believe that that's genuinely come from her then, in that case, because she's about as scatterbrained as that, isn't she, when she speaks?
Again,
I should say, though, that Carney, this is according to a news alert that's come through on the agencies, on the wires. Apparently, Carney has now said that he's spoken with the head of Stellantis and, according to this article, received assurances there are options for the Brampton plant.
Yeah, give us more money.
That's not information.
Give us more money.
Yeah, give us money. Yeah.
Give us more money and we'll build an EV plant in 10 years. Likely. That'll be the pitch.
Oh, what about all those billions of dollars I gave you earlier for you to stay here? And it's like, what billion? What billion dollars? Like, what are we talking about? Which billions are those?
It's so obvious. How I think the government should hire you and I, because we've said it a while, like what, 6 months ago, a year ago? Dump the EV mandate. They're in the boardrooms right now. And they're deciding where to put the capital. You have one jurisdiction that says we have no EV mandate. We have one jurisdiction that says that we will clear the red tape for you. We have one jurisdiction that says less taxation. And we have one jurisdiction that says you have an EV mandate, a 20% tax on if you sell over the allotment. And then we have one jurisdiction says you have an industrial carbon tax. We have one jurisdiction that has no certainty of investment.
And also, I mean, it's a bit more abstract, but we have one jurisdiction in the United States whose executive and also like the majority of the legislative branch are expressly in favor of build baby build and drill baby drill, and they want energy abundance. They want to build. They want to grow the economy. Not to mention it's the largest consumer market on earth, but forget that. But we've got that on the one hand, and then on the other hand, we've got a leadership class in Canada that speaks out of both sides of its mouth, can't even say clearly whether they're in favor of like basic infrastructure like oil pipelines, the most basic thing you could imagine for a country that has natural resources. They still won't even say. And they don't have many plans. Their great announcement of infrastructure plans happen to be a load of projects that were already nearly done anyway. I mean, if you're sat there in the big boy building on the top floor and you're having a conversation about like where to invest, you're just going to be tepid. I mean, you have to be, don't you, about somewhere like Canada? It's like,
Hey,
whereas the US, it's like all this fanfare, everything, the red carpet rolled out for you, not to mention all the threats as well, if you don't go there.
But think about this. They'll also add this layer into there. They're actually building the cars because they want to sell them in the United States. They're not building the cars to service the Canadian auto market. They're building them because they want to sell them into the US, although some are sold here as well. And the other thing is it's an American automobile company. It's an American automobile company. And you put all this stuff in the way. This is where we should be putting a lot less. How do we compete? Well, the problem with the Liberals is they want a virtue signal. They want identity politics. And a lot of this is to cause confusion. They can't get out of their own way. Again, go back and read Melanie's letter and read it through carefully and just use your common sense and read through it. And you'll see what a mess they are. They can't even form a coherent thought or a coherent threat.
Yeah. Well, Stellantis, does that count as American? I think it's like European almost in my. But certainly, the Americans they certainly have some ownership in it. But the reality is, it almost doesn't matter, does it? Because America is so important. Yeah, America's just so dominant in terms of consumption that you might as well say it's American, again, because they call the shots if they want to.
And here's just some basic napkin stuff for anybody anybody in economics. What's the percentage of cars that they make that are combustion versus EVs, and which ones do they make money on? Which country is going to punish them for making combustion cars, and which one's going to reward them? That's the math right there. There's the math right there in front of you, staring at you. Here's Pierre Poilievre's reaction, though.
Have poured billions of dollars into Stellantis, and we want to make sure that they get all that money back if the company is moving jobs out of this country. Why would the Liberals allow a company that's getting billions of tax dollars, supposedly to create jobs, take those jobs to the U.S.? It sounds like another disastrous Liberal boondoggle. And Mark Carney, it's time for you to keep your promise to those workers. You said you'd negotiate a win. You said you'd have a deal by the 21st. You said you'd save.
You have to, remember Chrystia Freeland, the photo ops? They love the photo ops. The Liberals love the photo ops. Chrystia Freeland was sitting in the boardroom with the 6 CEOs of the automakers here in Canada and said how great it was. And then, then the automakers came out after that and said, Trump the EV mandate. Chrystia Freeland just said, it's good, it's awesome. Why don't they release the minutes of those meetings and let the public decide who's telling the truth here? Because they've been saying it, dump the EV mandate. And all the Liberals have done is say, oh, we're going to pause it. So again, the CEOs are sitting around in a boardroom. And remember, these are international companies or American companies. And everybody vies for it. So they're sitting in the boardroom. And Stellantis is sitting in the boardroom and said, okay, so we've got some capital we want to invest. We want to build this Jeep Compass. We can build it in Illinois, or we can build it in Brampton. And then, the guy in, the campaigns for Brampton in the boardroom will say, oh, these are the reasons we should do it there. And then the guy for Illinois jumps up and says, well, here's all the reasons we should do it here. Less taxation, less regulation, no EV mandate. Bing, 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 bad.
No tax.
Let's vote. Where do you think the vote's going? Where do you think it's going? Right, and the guy from Brampton says, "Oh, but Melanie Joly will be upset and will write a really stern letter." Okay.
And also, they might sue them, but these companies know all about that. Their legal departments are massive. They're used to being sued, aren't they? It's just part of business.
See you in 10 years. Who's got the money? Is the check already? Did they already cash the check? I guess is the question.
And also, who's got like the continuity? If there's a Conservative government or an NDP government next Parliament, who says they're going to continue with this legal case? It's kind of, there's more continuity in these big corporations.
But obviously,
But I would say we talked about it a couple of months ago now, I think, where there was that the revelation from none other than the CBC, of course it would be, that there's an increasingly unsettled and restive coalition within the Liberal caucus who are starting to make noises about Carney's apparent lack of environmental policies, or what they consider to be environmental policies, climate policies and things like that. So we know that there's already been a cannonball fired across the bows of HMS Carney, and it would be HMS Carney with him since he's such an Anglophile. We know that he's got to appease these people, the Gilboas of this world, and many more. And I think really that's what it boils down to. And if me and you could figure that out,
I know,
and lots of other people could figure that out, I'm sure Stellantis $10 million a year executives can figure it out, or they can get a slave to go out and figure it out on their behalf.
They've been watching our show and they're just like, hey, those guys have some good points.
We're responsible for this abandonment of Brampton.
It's actually so obvious. So obviously the Liberals are in chaos there because they're having this cabinet meeting. I mean, you'd have to be a clown not to think this was coming. Like, I mean, more of it's coming. More of it's coming. More of it's coming. Here's Doug Ford's reaction. Yeah. This guy doesn't make it better for anybody. Here's Doug Ford. Like, I mean, he's going to go down as like a competition to Olivia Chow for some of the stuff he's doing.
The tariffs for lumber went up yesterday or today. I'm not sure, but have you got any?
I'll talk to him on Thursday. But that guy, President Trump, he's a real piece of work. You know something? What my message to the Prime Minister when I meet him on Thursday is, if you can't get a deal, let's start hitting him back. Let's start hitting the U.S. back hard. Because all Trump does is continue. We're nice, play nice in the sandbox. And today's yesterday's 10% on softwood lumber. After it was 35%, he increased it 10%. And then he all of a sudden, one day out of the blue, someone must have told him cabinet makers. And we should ship a lot of cabinets down there. And all of a sudden now there's a tariff there. I am sick and tired of sitting and rolling over. We need to fight back. Folks, we are an economic powerhouse. We buy $356 billion of goods, Canada does, off the U.S. We're the #1 customer to the U.S. No one in the world buys more goods than what we do. We need to start hitting back and hitting back hard. That's the only thing this person understands. Sorry, I just get pumped up talking about this guy. He drives me absolutely crazy. He does, and we aren't going to roll over. I'm not going to let him roll over Ontario. I'll tell you that.
That's good. Okay, see the guy there with his head down, just like, I don't know what's going on here.
Get me out of here. Well, I mean, it's usual with Mr. Ford. He says things, but where's the plan? Like, is this a pragmatic approach? And if so, like, how is it going to work? When are you going to start doing things rather than just saying things?
This, in all seriousness, this has nothing to do with Trump, but our own self-harm. It has nothing to do with Trump and our own self-harm. Because Trump is doing what he wants to do for America. That's his job. That's his job. Make America great again. Our job is to make Canada better and competitive. So, where's the pipeline, Doug? Where's the pipeline? Your best buds with
somebody here
Mark
also
Carney.
mentioned Brookfield. That was in his province. Brookfield was headquartered in Ontario, in his province, and left for the United States. Where's the conversation about that?
But why don't we look at what we have in the cupboard, look behind us and see what we have in the cupboard, and say, oh, one of our biggest things in the cupboard is oil. Why don't we figure out a way to get that to market, Doug? How do we make it more competitive? Less taxation. Doug should be screaming, get rid of the EV mandate. I'm sure he's heard from the CEOs of the 6 automakers. I'm sure he's heard from them, the EV mandate. Have you ever heard Doug Ford say get rid of the EV mandate? Have you ever heard him say that?
I can't say I have. I don't know what his actual position is on that. I think it's probably quite ambiguous, but no, I can't say I've ever heard him mention it.
I mean, the automakers have said it themselves. Doug seems to forget that.
But Doug also, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I've got this vague recollection, this vague memory that a few months ago, something happened where there were like these two guys that were arguing with each other about who was going to lead Canada. One of them was against all that stuff, and then the other one was in favor of them. And this fella liked the one that was in favor of them. If I'm not wrong, I mean, maybe my memory's gone here, but how is that added together? How does that work?
Where's Doug's criticism of Mark Carney when he's actually face-to-face with Donald Trump, where they seem like best buddies and bar buddies, and then he comes back with no deal? How many times has Mark Carney promised a deal for Canada? And then when he goes and meets Trump, it's like, you know, and he's the one that phoned Trump and begged to come to the signing in Egypt there. He's the one that begged to be a part of that. Last minute. Couldn't even get a CAF jet to go for him. He had to take a charter flight, and then now the all government corrupted media are mad because they didn't get to go along on a junket. Yeah. It's like a literal clown show, Doug. Like, you wear a lot of this. Anyway, here's a thing from David Eby. Awful news on Stellantis workers in Ontario, and Ottawa's responding as they should. Responding how? We need the same urgent response for our forestry in BC. Again, Mr. Eby. Forestry's been in shambles for years here in British Columbia. I did the stories. I talked to the forest minister, the former forest minister, Bruce Ralston. Like, fiber, access to fiber. You can't even solve that. You can't even get permits to people. This adds to the problems with forestry, but prior to Trump, 10,000 forestry workers lost their job. And it's not even in, if you go read Brenda Bailey's when she was the Jobs and Economic Advisor, go read the jobs, the financial plan for BC's jobs economy. Forestry wasn't even, I mean, logging or sawmills wasn't even mentioned in there because they want to talk about value added and they want to talk about mass timber and stuff. And I asked Brenda Bailey in an interview, I said, isn't a sawmill, like, there's no value to be added. That's the finished product. It goes into the walls of the homes. And she's like, oh, yeah, you're right. I'm just like, what do you mean I'm right? And then she says, oh, I mean, forestry's in trouble everywhere, even in the U.S. I said, well, it seems to be going great in Alberta. How do they seem to be doing it? And it's just, take some responsibility. You've decimated the forest industry way prior to what Trump did.
But it's also beyond an economic argument. I mean, Melanie Joly's come out yesterday saying that money is going to be provided to the softwood lumber sector to keep it afloat, in her words, to keep it alive.
Just like the media, right? Just like the media.
Just like the media. But she mentioned, she said, like, you know, this transcends economics. This is, and also applies to steel and aluminium. She said, this is like a national security issue. I mean, and laughably, she even said, you know, if we were to go to war, and that just immediately made me think, like, can you imagine Melanie Joly in a war government? But anyway, she said, if we were going to go to war, like, we need these things. So that's kind of what I would put to Brenda Bailey and the BC government. It's like, again, we hear a lot about patriotism and all the rest of it. Canada's strong, elbows strong, as one of our commenters said. But where's that kind of thinking? Where's it like, okay, so maybe it's not that advanced in terms of value added, but it's extremely important. You know, it's absolutely crucial to the sort of day-to-day functioning of Canada as a country, if it is to be a country.
It's absolute. Like, if we had to go to war, what's the number one thing you need in a war? That'd be energy. We refuse to use it, though. So what would we do? Fight a war with branches or something? I don't know.
I thought we were at war. You know, we've been told that we're
with the
at
Americans.
War. But we're so terrified for our lives as we battle this in this war, this existential crisis, as we've heard them say. We're so deep in this war that we've got time to go on massive summer vacations and repeatedly sort of scratch our chins about whether or not we should do literally the most basic thing any country with energy should do: build pipelines. Just you can't get more basic than that. It's like, if you run a business, that's like payroll That's like the number one. It's your priority. Can't even do that. Which is why months ago we had this conversation when the hysteria was at its peak. Months ago we just said, like, obviously they don't believe what they're saying because their actions don't support what they're saying. It's nowhere near as serious or dire as our leaders suggest it is.
I think one thing that Canadians should demand is honesty. Honesty from the politicians and honesty from the media, and they're not getting it. They're not getting. They have a government that even the CTV now is saying that they're like it's just full of ambiguity. I mean, that's why. Why is it full of ambiguity? I mean, they do that intentionally. They can't be that stupid. They have to be doing it with intention. And then the media has been corrupted, just like almost every industry in Canada. The Liberals put in policies that cripple it, and then they offer subsidies, so it's at the begging bowl all the time. And this is what it is. Like these automakers are probably only here because they've been doling out billions of dollars so they could stand at the podium and talk about all this nonsense, how they started another EV battery plant. I've got news for you. The only EV automaker in the world that's making money, there's only one, and it's not rocket scientists. You can figure it out. There's only one, and that includes the Chinese automaker. There's only one EV maker in the world making profit. Any guesses?
Well, you say it's not rocket science. The guy that is overseeing the success is kind of a rocket scientist.
I mean, you're picking it out. It shouldn't be rocket science to recognize. And you vilified him. You vilified him to the point of he visited BC, and instead of like David Eby saying, I'd like to get a meeting with you while you're here in British Columbia to see if you can take some of those billions and billions and billions of dollars you have and maybe invest in British Columbia. The Green Party, the leader there, put out a tweet that we need to wipe him out of existence. What a welcome message, eh?
Yeah, I mean, they've decided that there's more value in attacking him, and it's in their interests, their personal career ambition and interest. It's valuable to them to insult Elon Musk rather than try and benefit the country or the province by being chummy with him.
Melanie Joly not finished there and being completely delusional on the auto sector and the EV mandate. Now also stating that we're a world leader in AI. She said she called Canada world leader in AI. But the Commons Committee actually ranks Canada 21st. There are 3 countries on the earth right now that are really competitive in AI, said Joly. You know what? Canada is part of that. And that's because of sustained investments on the part of the Canadian government over the past 30 years. But I must say, particularly in the last 10 years in AI. Where's the proof of that? Like show me, like anything, just a small inkling. Just anything.
But it never needs proof, does it? This is the problem with champagne.
We have the best. She says we have the best talent and the best
requests for proof.
Where is it? Where? Like, show me. Like on the stock market, it must be listed somewhere. Now the problem Canada has a lot of is commercialization. Will be everything. Adoption will be about our productivity and our competitiveness. One thing that is clear: there are no tariffs on technology and services. That's really important to remember. You vilified all the tech companies in the U.S. You have a major fight with Meta. Meta doesn't even want to do business here in Canada, although they take people's money. But Meta doesn't care about you. You've picked a fight with Meta. You picked a fight with Google.
Yep, Google's not happy just because they put up that 100 million in a roundabout sort of way. They're still not happy about it. You
called the most consequential man on the planet, the smartest man on the planet, and the biggest leader in tech and real-world AI. Some of your MPs have called him a Nazi, a far-right extremist, a danger to democracy. Absolute clown show. And again, to be competitive in AI, what's the one thing everybody wants? Even China wants it. And that's why he's in part of that fight, is because they can't get access to NVIDIA GPUs.
Yeah. I mean, it's about that, and it's about energy, isn't it?
Where do you think
what she's talking about
on the list?
I think what she's talking about is just the brain power. And in that sense, that's why she's saying the problem Canada has is commercialization. She's talking about like people in universities, people like Jeffrey Hinton, who is actually, well, he's English born, but moved to Canada and works in Toronto. He's one of a few people that's called the godfather of AI. There are people like that knocking around in Canada. And that is important, but that's just one element. You need that. You need those brains, and then you need the equipment like the GPUs and all the rest of it, and you need energy. So, yeah, and then there's also kind of things that are harder to explain and build, like commercial enterprises and things like that. I mean, that's a whole different thing, like business expertise. But so Canada's got one of those things basically, hasn't it? I mean,
And
it
refuses the other
theoretically has
one.
energy, but are we doing what the Americans are doing and kind of just going, or the Chinese for that matter, and going gung ho and being like energy, 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 like let's do it. We need to stay competitive. I don't see that happening.
And we have Evan Solomon in charge of AI here. Like again, name a company, name somebody that competes with Google, XAI, ChatGPT. Like these people won't even talk to us. Like again, look at the White House in the room with whatever this person we vilify all the time, the threat to democracy. In the room with him was Sam Altman. Microsoft was in the room. Google was in the room. I mean,
Jensen.
Jensen Huang was in the room. Elon wasn't there because he had a falling out. But I mean, all these people, these are the world leaders in AI. I mean, it's clearly like there's America in AI. And then way down there with a telescope, you can see second place. And then way down past that, you can see Canada way down there. Like when you say they're 21st, like 21st would put you where in the AI spectrum?
Just behind Seychelles and Mauritius. It's like, yeah.
You know that thing that you used to swing the one thing, you drop, the ball goes across and hits the other ball out, and you would say that's AI? I don't know.
But I would say on your comment about the US and China, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if anyone really knows that. China's very secretive, obviously, and they're also absolutely expert at intellectual property theft. So you can kind of assume that whatever the Americans have conceived, the Chinese will have stolen it already.
Yeah,
I don't know. China maybe is a bit higher than we expect, but certainly those two are just like we can't even see them. They've left the atmosphere.
They're the Ferengi for sure. China is the master duplicators. Yeah,
not quite as ugly as the Ferengi.
And this government, these two people here gave $1 billion to the Chinese to build. Supposedly Canada's a world leader in shipbuilding. Melanie Joly said that as well. But I guess we contract that out to the Chinese. Maybe they're an arm of the Canadian government. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's where she's saying.
Lightning Rod. I love Lightning Rod's optimism. We are indeed the world leaders of AI and the builders of AI.
Sarcasm is the name of the game for Lightning Rod.
It's a really good Canadian AI company, ChatGPT, isn't it? We forgot that one.
Yeah. But Melanie is not done yet. She says that financial relief is coming for Canada's tariff-struck softwood lumber. Where's all this money coming from? Where is this endless supply of money? Why not fix the issue? One of the biggest issues in BC is access to fiber. Ask the mill company, ask the sawmills, ask them access to fiber.
And it literally, that translated, that just kind of means ability to cut down trees, doesn't it? It's like permits. Access to the permits. And that's so funny because of access basically. It's just so funny when you look at British Columbia. You don't even have to go to British Columbia. Just look on Google Maps in the satellite. Just look at that. There are so many trees, but yeah, not allowed to chop them down.
Well, I interviewed David Eby and I told him that problem. I said there was a documentary that was done out of Merritt, and they couldn't even get access to permits to cut down the burnt wood from a forest fire. And you got to cut that down right away, otherwise it's unusable. And he said, yeah, we recognize there's a problem. We're working on it. And you know what they did? They said they struck a committee. And they're going to have this committee look at, like access to fiber. And what did the industry say about that? We did the story on it.
Uninvited.
It said, unrepresented. Like, it's again a waste of time because you have all the environmental groups and all these other people in there. It's like, a committee building an elephant. It's just, thanks for coming out, basically. And again, this problem's been going on. Dan Alba's point is 6 years ago in Tolko was shut down here 6 years ago. This is way before Trump. So this is not a Trump thing. This is what they're doing. They're finding a straw man, and they're going to blame everything on Trump. Like this just happened overnight. This has been happening. This kind of like decay and destruction of this. And I worked in the cement industry as a young man. I started at 16 years old. I started in a mill called Pope and Talbot there in Midway, and I pulled boards on a green chain. Then I worked for Canadian Forest Products for about 8 or 9 years. Worked in every job in the mill. I understand mills. A lot of my buddies made a living off. It's good money. But again, everywhere I went, it was, even back then, it was like access to fiber was the problem. Access to fiber was the problem then, and it's still the problem. And that closure happened here in 2020. In that same period, Canfor announced it would curtail all of its operations, BC sawmills, for 2 weeks over the holidays due to high fiber costs and weak markets. It's been going on. Like again, 10,000 people lost their jobs in the last. It was 2 years ago. Kofi reported that. And I've interviewed Kofi as well. Like they're trying to pretend this is all just a Trump issue. This has been happening over time. We are the problem. We are the problem. We are the problem with overregulation, no access to fiber. When I talked to the vice president of Aspen Planers, he said that the close ties that the BC NDP had with Stephen Guilbeault is basically don't cut any trees down. He said everybody thinks that all the trees are like the ones at Stanley Park. They don't want any trees cut down. These are the people. Yeah. These are the people
like
from industry.
Development, isn't it? It's like NIMBYism or something. It's happening all over the world, really, but all over the West.
Does CBC go out and ask industry what's going on? No. Why would
I'm sure they'll ask some very interesting people what's going on, but there won't be anybody that actually knows what they're talking about. I just have to say, sorry, our dear, cherished friend, Lightning Rod here, who is the one that said that Canada is a world leader in AI. He asks, who's the lead engineer at ChatGPT? I think I know the guy you're talking about, Salman something or other, Salman Chowdhury, who is he Canadian? He went to university in Canada. But where's he lived for the last 15 years? Maybe it's longer than 15 years. California.
What does that have to do with Canada?
He's American now. Like, sorry, he might have been here for a bit.
Elon Musk,
but it's not ours. We don't possess him.
You could claim Elon Musk as a Canadian.
Yeah, exactly. No, there's loads of Canadians. There are actually loads of Canadians in Silicon Valley. There's also loads of Brits in Silicon Valley. Yeah. But the British aren't world leaders in like apps and technology and things like that, really, are they? Just because some British people have gone off to Silicon Valley to help develop companies like Apple. Like one of the main brains behind Apple and Apple's success is a Brit. But Britain doesn't have any sort of possession of Apple.
Just to show you what's important to the CBC, if you go to their website right now, in the above the fold, it's time to talk. Carney rules out hitting the U.S. with retaliatory tariffs, right? Okay. Former CBC reporter to run Manitoba's U.S. trade office. Okay. Tank top ads on Amazon use offensive phrase pulled after CBC investigation. Dubai chocolate is everywhere. Wife beater. Dubai chocolate is everywhere. But what is going on? Isn't this the story?
Yeah, look at this one. Look at this one. Do you think F-35 fighter jets are all American? Canada actually plays a major role in production.
Like a clown show. Absolute clown show. Let's listen to what Mark Carney has to say. We got something else first. The defense minister announces Canada will be sending $500 million, another $500 million package to Ukraine. Where are we getting the money? But let's listen in on what he has to say here.
Ukraine. I'm looking forward to hearing what the United States has to say about further provision of equipment and sustainment of equipment in Ukraine. Canada was pleased to purchase one of the $500 million packages under the Pearl Initiative to provide the equipment that Ukraine obviously and desperately needs. So we'll see what the Americans have to say about that today.
The Pearl Initiative will make a difference for Ukraine. Can you explain, please?
Again?
How will this Pearl Initiative make a difference for Ukraine?
It's a coherent approach to equipment that's required and available immediately. A list which is devised by the Ukrainians in conjunction with the Americans. It's a list of material which is available now. It's an important moment, so we believe one of the first 3 or 4 countries to commit and to invest this way, we believe this will have an immediate impact. That equipment is already beginning to flow.
But the initiative is not picking up at the speed that the Americans had hoped. So how do you want to convince your European counterparts today to also invest more?
That's good. There, Trump has figured it out. So the Pearl Initiative, he gets all the NATO companies to pay for American weapons that are then given to Ukraine. So the Americans aren't paying for it. The Canadians are paying for it. And then they're, you know what I mean?
To buy their old junk, probably, that they don't even want anymore.
What a deal for Lockheed Martin and everybody and the Americans. Like Trump has said it a million times. We're not paying for anything. NATO's paying for it. And then they're giving it to Ukraine. And whatever they do, it is up to them. Right?
It's remarkable, isn't it?
Where does Canada have another 500 million and plus the $4.5 billion that went to Ukraine in this reconstruction? I'm not sure what they're reconstructing. And now we got our former finance minister and transport minister as the envoy to Ukraine that doesn't have to disclose anything now because, she's not really part of government and, everything would be top secret, I guess.
National security. But we're not just helping Ukraine rebuild. It's also Gaza and trying to help the Palestinian Authority reform there in the West Bank.
When do we apply for aid? Because we're going to need it pretty quick here. When do we apply?
Well, we would apply to the IMF if we went bankrupt. Those will be the ones that bail us out.
Absolutely ridiculous. But here it is, Mark Carney. Let's listen to what he has to say.
After a year in which Canadians have faced an increasingly dangerous and divided world, and the shock of a trade war that's causing big economic uncertainty. These aren't just changes, they're not just a transition, it's a rupture. And Canadians have taken 3 big lessons from this upheaval. And the first is that we have to look out for ourselves. And that's why Canada's new government is focused on protecting our communities, protecting our borders, protecting our country, and protecting our way of life. And that's from more RCMP and border security officers to new legislation that combats hate, tightens the criminal code, and toughens conditions on bail. Now, the second lesson I think we've taken over the past year, Canadians have learned that we have to focus on what we can control. In a rapidly changing world, that means building our strength here at home. And that's why Canada's new government is moving swiftly with measures to build one Canadian economy, millions of more homes, and major projects that will connect and transform our nation. Because we know, as Canadians, we can give ourselves far more than any foreign government can.
Tough listen. That's a man that speaks with the intention of not being heard, really, and he doesn't want you to listen.
I mean, that's the same. That almost is his campaign speech, but the Liberal Party put that out as a tweet, and 5 hours ago. And where's Team Canada? Where is Team Canada? We can't get a pipeline built because the province of British Columbia says no access to the coastline. If we're a trading partner, if we're so worried about trade, isn't the coastline the most important component in trade? Isn't it? Am I wrong? Am I like an absolute lunatic or something?
And Vancouver, British Columbia, represents an enormous proportion of our sort of access to the world. Surprisingly little goes through Montreal and the St. Lawrence. It's fundamental to Canada's economic viability.
Right. And again, if you're sitting around in a room, I don't know if they gotta hire us, because if you're sitting around in a room, just like, what is our most valuable export? I don't know, like, people raise your hands. It isn't windmills. We're going to hear about it later. Apparently it is windmills.
Is it AI engineers? I think it might be.
It's absolutely clownish. Anyway, we self-harm. But here we go. Here's a reporter, I think, for the Toronto Star. And who are they going after right now? Instead of going after the Carney and the Liberals for all their, like, what you would say, piddling everywhere, making a mess, making an absolute mess. Here it is. Here it is, the old attack line. Start turning Pierre Poilievre into Trump. Straw man Pierre Poilievre. Why are Donald Trump's executive orders turning up as policy for Pierre Poilievre? There we go. Why not, eh?
Yeah. They call that running defense. They're trying to protect the Liberals, basically, by attacking, somebody that is effectively powerless, but then going out there to attack.
Government corrupted media doing their job to distract and push attention to Pierre Poilievre. He must be doing a good job, but they don't say, look at another conservative plan being adopted by the Liberals. Nope. No such luck, eh? No such luck.
Friend here, I'm just loving this dialogue that we've got going on. This Socratic dialogue says, we are the leading AI engineer exporter with multiple Nobel laureates.
Wow.
Where does that appear on our balance of payments, on our international trade? Does that give us a surplus? How much is that worth to us? Has it built us any hospitals lately?
How many jobs
do we apply a tax when they leave Canada? It's like, oh, that's an exit tax for you, Mr. Engineer. $2 billion, please.
That's what I mean. They have no clue, right? Just this virtue signaling.
But I mean,
identity
fair enough.
politics.
You can be proud. You can be proud of that. That's, as a Canadian, great. That is a source of pride. But then the follow-up is, how is this benefiting us? Yeah, exactly. It's also why they're leaving.
It highlights the problem. Why wouldn't they develop it here in Canada? Answer that
and the
question.
reason tends to be regulatory.
You answer that question, and you will therefore find the answer that we all seek. There is the problem.
And then the response might well be, oh, we're a small country compared to the United States. But there are countries all around the world, like Denmark. Denmark's a tiny country, and yet it's a world leader in pharmaceuticals. Sweden, pretty small country, yet it has a lot of tech companies. Israel, for God's sake, not only is Israel tiny, Israel's at war constantly, always has to be scared of being blown up by people that hate them. How is it that Israel has all these great companies?
Let me just think of one
world?
That's similar to us, has similar assets. Oh, that's right. It's Norway. What are they doing right? Huh. Here's a clip here from talking about this is the witness here at the bail when they're talking about all this violent crime here in Canada. Let's listen to what she has to say.
Mr. Long. Thank you, witnesses, for your time and testimony today. I'd like to start with you, if I could, Dr. Myers. You mentioned that the bail system is the harshest it's ever been. Those were your words. Do you think bail should be made easier to access after the culmination of our research here?
I think it absolutely needs to be more readily available for a lot of people in custody. I think we can acknowledge that there are some people who are perhaps too risky or the allegations are too serious. We want to focus our attention on those, not an automatic decision to detain, but to be able to focus on those. We need to make release more available for all kinds of others who are there for more minor reasons.
So what are the sorts of offenders that are being detained pre-trial now that you think should be getting bail and aren't and don't have it available to them?
Most of the folks that have been charged with nonviolent offenses.
Okay.
And that would be the bulk of the individuals that go through our bail court.
You talked about in your career as an academic, quote, interviewing justice officials and accused individuals.
Yes.
You didn't mention victims, victims of crime. Have you interviewed them as part of your research?
No, I study the criminal justice system, not rather than what happens with victims.
Do you think that the experiences of victims should have any bearing on how offenders are treated by the justice system?
Absolutely. The victims are critically important in all of this, but nonetheless, we need to remember the very important constitutional rights that we have, and that those must absolutely be protected, and that while there may be harm to victims, we can provide those supports that they may need outside of the criminal justice system where they would be far better served.
But why in 20 years of researching this has interviewing victims not factored in if you think they do have a role to play in the way these decisions are made and these policies are drafted?
Because it has not been part of my research agenda. I've spent the time sitting in court and talking to those who I'm interested in the process of bail. I'm sitting in court. I've heard from many of victims about their experiences that comes out in the open court.
So you do indicate that people should, I'm paraphrasing, but you said they should be punished after a conviction. Yeah. So who should be held behind bars pre-trial in your view?
I think a very limited number of people. If we go back 40 years, we used to be sitting much closer to about 20 or 30% of those in our provincial jails were in pretrial detention. I suspect those are the folks that needed to be there, while other folks were able to be better managed in the community.
Do you think that anyone who's charged with first-degree murder should be behind bars pretrial?
I would leave that to the decision makers to properly examine the information that's been provided to assess the risk and make those decisions.
So you think bail for first-degree murder is actually legitimate at times?
I think in some circumstances it could
Okay,
be possible.
I can't
I'm not
anymore.
a lawyer. I'm not.
It's good though. That's good. I'm glad you put that in there, and I'm glad that we sat through that, because you've got to get it into your head that these are the people who have designed Canada's justice system. It's these people. These are the experts. So if you're wondering why everything's upside down, you can't make sense of it, it's because people like that are in charge of it. And not the fella asking the questions, which is a bit odd because he's obviously an elected official, but it's people it's people like that. It's the academics who grace us in so many areas of life with their wisdom.
Yeah, the biggest thing is, like, you know, we have that really famous case here in Kelowna, where I think it was within hours of being let out, murdered his ex-partner, or allegedly murdered his ex-partner, right?
Well, that's one. That's one of, I mean, how many have there been? I still think, for my money, I still think the craziest one is that guy that literally fled the country, and then it was like, yeah, all right, off you go on bail again, mate. When he finally came back, that is, I mean, to me, that is the most outrageous decision that would be possible to make as a judge. But there you go.
We're running a bit behind. We got quite a few good stories left here. If nothing else, you get like, you're not going to get the CBC narrative of to distract you when things are in crisis, where you're talking about what tank top was on Amazon. We're giving you the stuff, and this Holly Doan stuff from Blacklock's never makes it in CBC. But here's one: Cabinet Advisor Amira, I'm not going to do this, El Jawabi, used her office to advocate for federal employees speaking out on Palestine issues and lobby against B'nai B'rith. Record shows censored documents detailing the activities of $191,300 special representative on combating Islamophobia were disclosed yesterday through access to information. So there you go. We're paying for it.
I mean, the very fact that that job exists is interesting, don't you think? Special representative on combating Islamophobia. Just another attempt. Cynics might argue, just another attempt by the Liberal Party to shore up their dominance among Canadian Muslims.
In the interest of
elections.
moving along here, yesterday Canada made global news here, and this is just we'll have a little bit of a clip. Actually, somebody videoed it. United States and Canadian authorities have launched that investigation after the pro-Hamas hacker took over the PA system at North American airports. We're going to play a little clip here. The airports.
Turkish hacker Cyber Islam was here. Telegramational Cyber Islam.
That's good, yeah. You can kind of see that it was just playing through the PA systems. According to Transport Canada, when they spoke to CNN, they're working closely with federal security departments, including law enforcement, to ensure no impacts to safety in the airport. You know. Okay.
His account, this Cyber Islam, and he put that tag, like his username, when he hacked the machines, and it was on that PA system. But when he hacked the machines in Kelowna, he's still there. He's still online, still on Twitter. I mean, one of his most recent tweets: Donald Trump, Netanyahu, I will bring hell to your country. You will never be safe. You will wake up to a new attack every day. And then you scroll down, and like I said, he's got what he claims are the personal phone numbers of Israeli cabinet ministers. He's also claimed this hack. What is going on at Twitter? Like, people who are against censorship for ideas and conversations obviously were quite excited when they saw that Elon Musk had brought in a new policy, a new sort of moderation policy with X. But I can't think of anybody that would want a criminal to be allowed to just freely post. Why would you want that? Like, what are they doing? Why don't they ban this account? It's just, you'd think this would just be like an instantaneous ban, wouldn't you?
Reliable power, challenging. Keeping the lights on could be a reliability challenge as utilities attempt to meet climate targets. Well, you know, we've got to make sure we meet those targets. The Canada Energy Regulator said that yesterday. The federal agency invoked an energy alert in Alberta in the winter of 24. That's how the province narrowly avert rolling blackouts in -40. And it says, how will future trends affect reliability? Electricity demand is expected to increase significantly in the coming years. That's from the energy regulator. Trends driving increased demand include electricity's projected role in decarbonization efforts and the growing electrification of end users, like includes more EVs and heat pumps. Meeting this rising electricity demand could be a reliability challenge, and higher electricity consumption can make it difficult for grid operators to reliably provide sufficient power during peak periods. I think it really is, it behooves you to kind of understand how electricity works. It is completely different. Some people think it's almost like gasoline, like, you know, like you pump it and then it goes through the system. Electrons are completely different. It's a pull thing, right? Like, just go do a basic thing and understand how electricity works, right? And how grids can actually black out from overpull and stuff like that. So it's a pull thing. It's not a push. You're not pushing electricity. It's pulled through the system, right? And it's instantaneous. Like, you know, the power from the Site C dam, for instance. Like it's here right away. It's electrons, right? And it's not doesn't flow all the way down and come down, and you know what I mean. You don't measure it like that, right? It's pulled through the system, and that's why you know, like they try to balance loads, right, so that you don't have these up and downs, because it ramps up and ramps down as the pull system, right? So I could go on and on. I mean, I've done lots of shows on electricity, but it's really important. And so they got these they got like peaker plants and that they run in the States and likely in Alberta too. These peaker plants. So when the pull is higher, like when people come home, like when people come like around 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock, you know, the washer and dryers go off, the dishwashers go off. There's this huge pull. So what it does is pulls a peaker plant online, right? So Site C can't keep up or whatever, and then all of a sudden it fires up an LNG plant or fires up a coal plant or whatever. But all these regulations by the government here are saying, oh, you can't run those, right? Because of climate targets and that, so you can't turn those ones on. And they have all these emissions caps and all that stuff. So then what should Canadians do? Freeze?
Yeah, I mean, the consequences just could be enormous, couldn't they? And it is related very much to wind and solar and the inability of grid managers to know how to deal with the, like you say, the peaks and troughs of supply. So and that's what happened in Spain and Portugal. It was too much, wasn't it? Yeah. I think it was too much solar, and they just didn't know. They didn't know how to organize it. They didn't know how to administer it, and people died. That's in Spain and Portugal. Very mild parts of the world, but people died. Imagine if that happened in, as you say, -40 in Alberta or something like that. Like, how many deaths are you looking at there? God forbid.
So when the draw is strong, a peaker plant comes on, like a LNG plant comes on, and it provides the electricity and it gets drawn through the system. You can't go out there to the windmill and there's no wind and say, turn, turbine, turn, right?
Just go.
Batteries do manage it, though. Batteries help, right? But again, you know, the best battery maker out there is Tesla.
There are also other ideas like with water and sort of trying to pump. When you've got an excess of energy, use that to pump water, and then when you've got a deficit, bring the water down and take a dam.
Right?
But
it's basically battery storage, right?
But that's
it's a battery
kinda,
of sorts. Yeah.
Yeah, basically. And you can combine it with a reservoir. But that's pretty experimental, isn't it, at this point? And it's presumably very, very expensive. So
again, we're running it here, but MPs asked to permit digital ID. Canadian airports are petitioning the Commons Finance Committee to introduce digital IDs for domestic travelers. Current regulations require only passengers carry a driver's license. You know, when you go to the airport, you try to get on a flight, it's either a passport or a driver's license, right? And they want these digital IDs. So again, there's a lot of people that don't want digital IDs, and there's a lot of people that want digital IDs. And it's going to be interesting to see, I think, with our friend Keir Starmer pushing for digital IDs, that Mark Carney will likely push to adopt it. I don't
know if he's our friend, but he's certainly Mark Carney's friend, isn't he? Seems to be his blood brother.
And here come the stories from the government-funded media. Get ready for this. Surging CO2 levels, a sign Canada must resist climate backsliding. And then here we go, right? Here come the stories, because this is going to set us up for what's coming next. The prominent Canadian climate scientist Damon Matthews of Concordia University has warned that Canada must resist pressure to loosen emissions targets amid a need to cut global CO2 levels. There you go. So we got to cut, right?
Canada represents
China,
at most
India,
1.5%.
and the US, who cares, right? What's that?
I'm just saying Canada represents at most 1.5% of global CO2 emissions.
Yeah.
Again,
here's the deal.
How
though.
are we going to do that? How are we going to help? I mean, the Paris deal agreement, 2015, I believe it was, that was supposed to be like, okay, we're all little, or many of us are little countries, but we'll all come together and we'll do this. And it was just compromised in the extreme. You had lots of countries that emit loads saying, oh no, you emitted more in the 1850s, so therefore let's adjust, and I'm going to do less and you're going to do like the whole thing has proved to be impossible to get people to agree to it. So why should Canada do it unilaterally? That question is just never answered.
Here's the answer for you. I've got the answer for you. And we talked about it before, and I did a really long LinkedIn post on this. This is the answer. Remember Tim Hodgson was promoting that carbon capture company coming to Canada? Carbon Capture USA. It's coming to Canada. American company, they touted it as, look at this, an American company coming to Canada. Yeah, it's getting 75% tax credit to come here on every dollar, 75 cents on the dollar tax credit. And then it's doing this thing here, where it's then going to have the ability to tax our energy companies. They're giving them the ability by selling carbon credits. But listen to Tim Hodgson explain this to you. He's gonna like clearly explain to you why Canada needs to lead in this area.
I've seen some Canadians express skepticism online and ask why we're investing in carbon management when we could simply do things like plant more trees. So let's take a few minutes to explain what carbon management is, why we're investing in this technology, and why planting trees alone won't be enough to meet our goals. The steel, cement, oil, and gas produced in Canada are essential to our economy. However, they also often require high temperature and complex chemical reactions that produce carbon emissions, or CO2. CO2 is a greenhouse gas with a significant impact on climate change. You know what?
You're going to go watch this yourself. I'll explain it to you in like 10 seconds as he plays the music that puts you to sleep there, and
it's like spa music, isn't it? It's like,
hypnotize you, and it's just like, yes, that's the way, carbon capture. Oh, that's it. I never figured that out before. So carbon capture and carbon capture credits, and if you go look at Brookfield, go look at the Brookfield BAM website there, and guess what you're going to find? Lots of stuff on carbon capture and the sale. You can actually go on there and they'll show you the companies that are actually buying carbon credits. So this is the climate grift that's going on. They're going to, just think about this. It goes on. You can go watch this whole thing yourself.
Companies ask.
You can go and so they've set up this big kind of like HVAC system or whatever, this monstrosity, and they're going to suck air through it. They're going to use energy to suck air through it. They're going to capture this carbon, and then they're going to put it in filters, and then they're going to sequester it, and then they're going to put it in a truck, and they're going to truck it to a different site, and then they're going to inject it into the ground to hide it there, to keep it, like out of our environment. Like, I don't know how they figure out how they're going to stay in the ground. It's a gas. and then the best part, the beauty of it all, they're going to sell it to oil companies and that, or anybody, industrial carbon tax. You're going to have to buy these carbon credits to do anything. So you're basically giving companies like Brookfield the right to tax everybody. That's what it is. You're giving them the right to tax everybody to do anything. It's almost like Visa. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're going to take 2 or 3% off everybody. It's brilliant, actually. If you think about it from their perspective, it's absolutely brilliant. And the public, according to what they're going to do, the public is going to demand it. These carbon credits.
It's remarkable, isn't it?
It's the best climate grift ever. Like, they're actually, like, it's almost like selling NFTs. Like, you can't even prove that it's in the ground. How many times will they sell that carbon credit that they injected into the ground? Whose carbon credit is that in the ground? Do you know what I mean? Like, who's going to go down there and check if it's still there, or who bought what? You're going to trust these people that are selling it?
Most importantly of all, is we need the subtitles to come up saying, meanwhile, in China, India, and the
or
United
better yet,
States and Indonesia and Nigeria and Russia and Japan. It's like nobody else cares about this garbage.
but
But
better yet, but better
Canada will
yet,
save the world.
but better yet, you know, the best processor of carbon is a tree. Grass, it's not just a tree. It's grass, it's trees, or wheat fields, or anything that has photosynthesis. And you don't have to inject the carbon, it processes it and releases oxygen. And if you go look at Carbon Capture USA, the reason they say they don't like trees, because they're just coming up with like BS reasons. The reason they say that trees don't work, because the climate change is burning all the trees down. So wildfires has made trees uncertain. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not a stable supply. No, and now
well, climate change apparently is meaning so that it has created a situation where they can't absorb carbon anymore. That's another thing. There's a BBC News is leading on that today, talking about how Australia's rainforest no longer sucks in carbon because of climate change.
It's photosynthesis, which is a BS. And then if you listen to what he says, oh, you need more trees. But if you actually just go and ask, trees are way more efficient. They're like 10 times more efficient than this carbon capture is. 10 times more efficient. So, but hey, you can make all the little pretty graphics and all that little stuff there, and you can sell the climate grift, and that's what they're doing. But again, in the United States...
Good friend, I just have to point out a good friend here, because I mentioned India there. He says, or she says, India is solarizing, not sure I accept that verb, but okay, faster than the rest of the planet, and so is Pakistan. Do you think at any point in your lifetime, or anyone's lifetime, that India will contribute a smaller proportion of global emissions than Canada? That's what we're talking about here. It's about the proportion. Obviously, India, its proportion is growing. Its CO2 emissions are growing. Just because they're building solar panels, that doesn't really change that, does it? This is a conversation about CO2 emissions.
Well, I'm going to say something here for China is leading in that area in solar panels. But the other thing is I have solar panels on my roof, right? And I think it's great. And I also drive an EV and driven an EV for we have like 4 EVs in the family. I think they're great. My problem is stop forcing people to do things. Show people that it's better, faster, and more important than doing it this way. Like this is wrong. What's being done? This is climate grifting. This is what it is. People profiting. Solar, I think, and I can do a whole show on electricity and how solar could actually solve a lot of the grid needs and everything. Solar is a big part of the solution. I believe solar at the end of the day, in 100 years, maybe, or whatever, will be the solution. Solar will be the solution. But it isn't there today. So we don't need Canadians not to be able to put food on their table because we're too stupid and too ideological to allow Canadians to feed their families. Let's just stop
when we
being
can't make a difference.
Yeah, let's stop being nonsensical.
Maybe if we were China, maybe if we were the Chinese and we were responsible for like more than a third of global emissions, maybe we could have a different conversation then, because we might actually be able to make a difference. As it happens, unfortunately, some would say, we can't make a difference. All we can do realistically is try to survive and invent technology that can help decarbonize.
And if you can't see the conflict of interest that Brookfield has in this climate grift that's going to come out with carbon credits, this is the absolute nonsense. These carbon credits that they're going to sell, this is climate grifting. Marco Rubio, here's the Americans. They ain't going to stand for it because the UN is trying to push because the UN lost its voice in this climate grift here because America said we're not playing anymore. But this week the UN is attempting to pass the first global carbon tax, which will increase energy, food, and the fuel costs around the world. And he says we will not allow the UN to tax American citizens and its companies. So, I mean, there you go. How far are they going to get when Trump just makes a few phone calls to a few key people and says, not a chance?
It's ridiculous. We also passed out, we talked about Tim Hodgson. We also passed over another bit. I don't know if we've got time to watch the video, but earlier today, he's in London. For some reason, he was on his little webcam there, talking to journalists. And he said something very interesting about Keystone XL, where it's like, we want to work with the Americans, like we want North American energy and all the rest of it. And then he said something like, in the context of Keystone XL, he said, we don't particularly care how that oil gets to America, the route that it takes. We're just happy to get it to America, which is a really interesting comment from him. And then he also was asked a question about BC. And you know how David Eby's been complaining and he's been saying, Alberta's ministers have been coming to BC and talking to our First Nations, ours, and like how wrong and how outrageous that is. Tim Hodgson said, no, Alberta is doing what you should do, which is speaking to the people who would be affected by an infrastructure project. So I also found that very interesting. Hodgson coming to the defense of Danielle Smith there.
That's what I mean. There is no continuity. There is no clear message. It's chaos.
But that's true as well. I mean, that is a very good point, and I was going to make that point actually. Even though that might be pleasant to hear for some people, particularly in Alberta, to hear Hodgson say that. But if you look at it from the outside, you take the sort of long view. What is going on? Like, who's determining policy? Where's the clarity? It's just a bit of a mess now, isn't it? There's no certainty.
And these are some of the climate grifters, and this is one of the big climate grifters in the U.S. And listen to this misinformation thing here. Listen here, just a quick couple 20 seconds here from our friend AOC. She's a big fan of the show as well.
Rivers in rural areas were on fire because of corporations poisoning the people who lived in those areas. Poor middle-class communities getting poisoned and dumped on by corporations like Deloitte and 3M, pouring chemicals into these places. And they want to call it a democratic priority.
Rivers of fire in the U.S. and Deloitte is an accounting firm.
Deloitte. It's an accountancy. Yeah, it's an accountancy firm. I think it's British, actually, isn't it?
I worked in an accounting firm, and I can remember that in the back room there, instead of just doing tax returns and corporate returns and that, I can remember saying, like, where do we keep all the oil that we dump in the river? I don't know.
I thought that was AI at first because it was a bit blurry. Somebody here, again, I mean, we probably should stop talking to him this much, even though I find it very entertaining.
Find it entertaining? There you go.
He just says, so to be clear, this channel believes that the entire global warming body of science is a grift? Question mark, question mark, question mark. I would ask the audience, did Jim say that? Or did I say that? Did we say that?
Carbon
or
credits
did we
are a
say
grift?
Maybe this carbon credit thing that's been orchestrated by literally monopoly man, by the richest people in the world who live in Wall Street and make their money there. The people that this woman here theoretically despises because they represent like the billionaire class. It's a criticism of what they're doing and how they are taking control of questions of climate change.
I think the thing is like this is the thing, like, you know, like when people want to look, they've lost all point of reasoning. The carbon credit is the grift. The carbon credit thing is the grift. It's not about climate change. That's the grift. Like I said, I drive an EV. I believe it's the solution. It's the best for the world. And I believe, like, again, here's a simple test. Go start your gas car in your garage, leave the door closed. Don't do it, because it's a bad idea.
I was going to say, don't do that.
Don't do it. It's a bad idea. But you can go in your EV and you can sit in it all day, right? Like, I have to be careful who I talk to here, because guys like Lightning Rod might actually go and test this theory out, right?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
God bless them.
You gotta think about it, right? If you look at that whole presentation,
it's almost like a religious conversation, isn't it? It's like when people, like the Catholic Church, quite famously, hundreds of years ago, used to sell indulgences, very, very controversial, and they said this is a way to reach God, basically, and they said we'll help you do that for a bit of money. Obviously, that upset a huge number of people, but that is fundamentally, that's an argument about, how do we reach God? How do we get grace? How do we be good Christians and all the rest of it? You will get predatory, cynical people, like the Catholic Church in that instance, who will jump on a legitimate concern that people might have and make money out of it. That is the grift. I'm pretty sure that's what we're talking about here. That's what Jim is talking about.
So Lightning Rod, like, if you really want to be taken seriously, just put your name to all your comments. Just put it down instead of just Lightning Rod. Just put it down. We put our names out here. Here's Anita Nan. She's got something to say too. Again, let's listen in to what she has to say.
We have what the world wants in Canada, and now we are leveraging our competitive advantages. I'm not sure if you've heard, but we have 10 large national projects, including wind, including LNG, including nuclear energy, with the development of an SMR at the Darlington nuclear plant.
That's good. That's good.
Countries around the world.
Good enough. First thing that comes out of it, what does Canada have? Wind? Wind. Everybody's got wind. No, that's it. And so only Canada has wind. Do you know what I mean? Like, does the wind not blow anywhere else? What does Canada have
It's
that's
the most
unique?
controversial. It's the most controversial of all of the major sources of renewable energy.
But I'm just saying,
well.
people are coming here because we have wind. Huh. I would have thought the wind blew everywhere. I could be wrong.
And it does. I mean,
I could be
there
wrong.
are some good patches in Newfoundland, apparently, for wind on the wind maps, but they have more reliable, cheaper forms of energy there. I'm not sure why they would
I
bother.
do know what Canada has that nobody else really has. Right, that's energy and resources. That's what we have, Anita. And then let's look at this chart here. This chart just published by the OECD. There you go. Red bar, that's Canada.
Wow. I'm just looking at the top. I mean, I would have taken it for granted that Canada would be at the bottom, but I'm just looking at the top there. Turkey, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland. They're making a mockery of us.
So if everybody's coming to Canada, Joly says we're #1 in AI. She says we have everything everybody wants. They're all coming here for wind and everything. Why doesn't it show up on here? What's going on?
It needs the Anita Anand treatment, doesn't it? Then it would look better.
She's traveled around the world recently, and she just had lots of photo ops. But where's the deal? Where's the deal? Where's one deal that says this many dollars, this much investment? Where? I don't see it. They must be holding them back.
There's so much opportunity as well, isn't there? It's like sometimes that's something we don't maybe talk about that very much. There's so much opportunity in the way the world is changing. As Melanie Joly told us, the world is changing. She discovered that a couple of weeks ago, didn't she? But just right now, a massive story in the world is the rare earths ban that the Chinese, or export ban, the effective export ban that the Chinese have put in place. They process something like 90% of the world's rare earths. We could do that. We have a lot of minerals. I mean, rare earths aren't rare.
20 years.
We have a lot of
20 years to get a mine permit in
But not
Canada.
only that,
20.
But because of the likes of our dear friend Lightning Rod here, who would immediately squeal about the CO2 emissions, because refining rare earths is very sort of CO2 heavy, intense. It puts out a lot of pollution. Things like that. There are opportunities there where we could do that. Not only could we do that and make money, but we could do that and be safe, which is probably more important. Because the fact that China processes 90% of rare earths means we are unsafe. We're in danger because of that. We could do that, but we won't do that because of ideological reasons. And Anita Anand, I think, illustrated that, where she starts talking about wind. There's no money in wind. And not only is there no money in wind, there's no geopolitical value in wind either.
Definitely not unique to Canada. People are coming to Canada because we have what everybody needs. Wind is the first thing that comes out of their mouth. The wind might be something that the Liberals express every time they open their mouth. Canadian refugee applicant in ICE custody says he crossed the border accidentally. I'm not sure how you do that accidentally. Do you? Just like, whoops, whoopsie.
The story is actually really funny. Like he claims that he was lonely and depressed, and he was speaking to a friend on the phone, and literally on the phone, live, being navigated, like receiving instructions from his navigator, and he happened to just walk across the US border. I'm sure.
Here's something. Here's Sam Cooper, a British Columbia journalist, actually a really good journalist. And here's it says Mexican cartels supplied by China using Canada's economy and institutions. So we're going to play this little clip here showing you some of the stuff, how they're smuggling. We saw that. The biggest bust, I talked about that Macklin McCall interview I did. They smuggled from the Vancouver port to New Zealand, the biggest drug bust ever there for New Zealand, smuggled in maple syrup cans. But look at this one. Let me play this small clip here.
Aiden's brother-in-law started dumping out the cans. Some were filled with beer, but not all.
And I was like, hey, wait, this looks like liquid glue that's coming out of this can.
Police raided the rented storage unit where...
That's good. You can go find that, actually. We're just so far behind here, we're just going to have to kind of speed things up. But look at that. And they're saying that cartels, including MS-13 and Trinidad are active now in Canada. That's from the RCMP. So, and Trump tightened up the things. Where are they going to go? Where it's a lot more lax, right? So.
But if you're wondering, just a quick bit of context, if you're wondering what these names mean and who these people are, These are the people that saw children in half with chainsaws on video and slice people's faces off to reveal their skull and then torture them to death on camera. Those are the kinds of cool people who we're now being told by the RCMP are among us. They live among us now.
And then that other person saying, like, you don't really want to keep people in prison because, it really, it doesn't, it affects their constitutional rights. Okay, Doug Ford, and he's running this, and we're going to play a couple seconds of it, but actually we're not going to play any of it. He's running a commercial there. $75 million he's going to blow in the U.S. trying to shame Donald Trump. Not going to work, Doug. Not going to work.
I can just see straight away on that picture there, above this person is a piece of wood with the word freedom, which, as we all know, is what Doug Ford stands for.
A little bit of BC news here. Again, we're a little bit past. We're going to kind of go quick. BC news. You going to run that intro or not?
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
There you go. And I did an interview yesterday with MLA Peter Millibar, conservative MLA for the opposition there. The Kamloops OBGYNs, they all resigned at the Royal Inland Hospital there in Kamloops, all at once, all 7 of them. That's it. And so we got some comments. Good story on Kelowna Now. You can go there and read it. We got comment from Interior Health. We did get an interview with them. And then we did get a comment from Josie Osborne as well during a media scrum. It's just, we've reached out for interviews for both. We want that interview with the CEO of Interior Health, and we want an interview with Josie Osborne. We've asked for both. Because this thing continues to get bigger and bigger and bigger. We saw it here in Kelowna with the pediatric, the resignation of so many pediatricians here in Kelowna where they had to close pediatrics for, almost 6 to 8 weeks, they closed pediatrics. That CEO lost her job here and was replaced by a temporary CEO, which they've now made permanent. And then the rolling blackouts in ERs all across rural hospitals in British Columbia continue to go and go and go. And now this is, and then they've had problems in Prince George with obstetrics, and now here in Kamloops, and they're just pushing people around. And again, in that interview, go watch that interview with Peter Millibar. 40% of people in Kamloops do not have a family doctor, and at the same time, the Liberal government continues to advertise to the world, come to Canada for free healthcare. Free, non-accessible healthcare. Come on.
We should also say Merit ER is closed. I think it was either closed yesterday or it might even be today. Anyway, there was a closure at Merit ER, and they were told to go to Kamloops, whose entire obstetrics and gynecology department has basically just resigned. I mean, yeah, it's the blind leading the blind, isn't it? Or it's the wounded treating the wounded. It's almost like the First World War or something.
And we will talk about good news for the NDP as well. And here is some good news. BC set to open Western Canada's first new medical school in decades. Good news. That's great. We need more of that.
Yeah, very much.
And then also some good news, because I give credit to the Liberals. They did that no GST on rental purpose buildings, and now we've kind of overbuilt, which is great. And rents are coming down here in Kelowna. So apartment renters now have the upper hand in Kelowna. So see, it's not all attack.
They also tinkered a bit with immigration rules. That's the other thing, isn't it? Kelowna obviously being a college town to a certain extent.
And you put this one in. Your BC program offers Indigenous offenders alternative to criminal charges. And this is what Quebec rejected.
This is profound to me. This is apparently the first of its kind in Canada. This is certain Indigenous people who commit minor crimes like shoplifting and fraud, I think is another one. Yeah, fraud, mischief, which is what the Ottawa truckers were convicted of. Yeah, that's just a minor crime. So if you're considered to be Indigenous, then you can go off, and it almost seems like an intervention the way they're talking about. It's like a therapeutic plan, 90-day therapeutic plan where they'll speak with like elders and things like that. Anyway, this is fascinating to me because this is obviously what Keir Starmer in Britain is often accused of. This is two-tier justice based on your DNA. This is two-tier justice based on your ethnicity. So just have a think about that. What do you think? Is that the way to go?
In our international news, we're almost done here. So this is the good stuff here, some good stuff. And this is a message to the Liberals here and NDP in Canada. You got to get the message, because the Democrats, some of them are getting the message. And this is Senator John Fetterman here. He's got a message for you. He's going to share it with you.
I'm the only Democrat in my family. I grew up in a conservative part of Pennsylvania, and I grew up and I know and I love people that voted for President Trump. But they are not fascists. They're not Nazis. They're not trying to destroy the Constitution and those things. And that's part of another thing. I refuse to call people Nazis or fascists, or I would never compare anybody to Hitler and those things. And now that kinds of extreme rhetoric is going to continue. We're going to be more likely in resulting in extreme kind of outcomes and political violence and doing all these kinds.
You get the message? Get the
He's
message?
been doing that. He's been saying that kind of thing for a while. Ironically, I think it's like ever since he had that stroke or something, he had some kind of serious problem, didn't he? And then he came out like a different man.
You get the message, Liberals, NDP? Did you get it?
Well, Justin Trudeau, does he get the message? Stephen Guilbeault will be another one who uses that kind of language.
Lots
I don't
of
know.
NDP
We've said
here
it
in
many
BC
times.
too.
Like they are out of date. They are very stale and out of date. Those people. It's like it's not the time. We're not in that era where you go around calling people Nazis or communists or whatever the hell it is.
And then here's another message. This is an important message. This is why I'm playing this. This is really important, because this is what they've done to you here in Canada just as well. It's the same message. This is the Liberals and Democrats, same thing. Let's play this.
I'm always got to be the person to say it, and I don't want to be the person to say it. But Donald Trump has been president for 9 months. 9 months! And I'm seeing videos from Chicago, D.C., where people are like, yo, I feel safe. My kids feel safe. This is the best thing he ever did for us. So what was happening all these years that this shit, like literally I've known DC and Virginia to have this type of shit going my whole life, and I'm in my 40s, okay? Almost touching it. So what was really truly going on if a motherfucker became president 9 months ago and cleared that shit out with just a flick of the pen? I'm just thinking, like, did y'all really ever care?
She's asking the right question, because these areas are controlled by Democrats. But the best way to understand people is to pay attention to their incentive structures. Democrats are not incentivized for Black Americans to do better. If you think about the Democrats' platform, it's about making everybody a victim. If you're Black, the system's racist and it's against you, and we are the people who are going to fix that problem for you. Those Republicans, they're racist. If you're gay, they don't like you because you're gay. If you're a woman, they don't like you because you're a woman. If you're an immigrant, they don't like you because you're an immigrant. And again, back to Black people, the reason you're struggling is because of history, racism, and the system. It's not your decision making. It's not you making poor decisions.
You can go watch that full thing yourself.
Yeah, it's always interesting in America because they're so obsessed with race, aren't they? And you're supposed to support the Democrats if you're Black, as Joe Biden said. It's like you vote for Donald Trump, you ain't Black. It's one of the craziest comments I've ever heard from a presidential candidate. But it is interesting, given that context, to see like more nuanced opinions, I suppose.
They do the same thing here. Like that's what they're doing with Poilievre right now. They've got some problems in the Liberal Party. What do? They're dragging Pierre Poilievre out as a straw man, right? So they're going to heap all the attention. He's the problem, right? Because he's the Trumpian, right? But here's
Miller. I was talking about Stephen Guilbeault using terrible language. Mark Miller's another one who implied that it's racist to be worried about immigration, didn't he? So it's like, and they are direct in that, certainly at Poilievre.
Here's the queen of misinformation here in the United States, and Nancy Pelosi. Like they're losing power in the U.S. They're absolutely losing, and they're losing their minds as well. Here's where actual media goes after them and asks tough questions.
Congresswoman Pelosi, are you at all concerned that the new January 6th committee will find you liable for that day? Are you at all concerned about the new January 6th committee finding you liable for that day? Why did you refuse the National Guard on January 6th?
Shut up.
I did not refuse the National Guard. The president didn't send it. Why are you coming here with Republican talking points as if you're a serious journalist?
The American people want to know. We still have questions. Thank you.
Shut up.
What a fool. What a fool. I mean, yeah, okay, what a fool she is. She's been doing this stuff for years. Who's the real fool, I guess, is the question you have to ask. Is it her for being such an awful person? Or is it the people that elect her every 2 years? Because she's a congresswoman, isn't she? That's every... Is it 2 years? I think it is every 2 years they have elections.
No,
it's just like win.
It's 4 years. They just do half and half, though. It's 4 years, right? But they do part of them every 4 years.
I've got a feeling that it is 2 years. You know.
No, you can check right now because it's half the House that gets like they just kind of roll them, right?
Yeah, 2 years. I was right.
Is it 2 years? Well, look at that. You're right, and I'm wrong.
You may apologize. Every 2 years, sympathy. People in San Francisco, they go there and they say, Nancy Pelosi, every single time. And she does things like that. It's kind of, what are you supposed to do in the democratic system?
Anyway,
what are you supposed to do? They want fools and they get them.
I mean, Nancy Pelosi's got to be the queen of misinformation in the United States. Like, and she's an angry person too. And she spread this Nazi rhetoric and all this stuff, and just, I mean, a lot of young people have messed up their lives with this stuff. Macron in trouble in France, I guess.
Yeah, when is he not? I mean, he hasn't had stability. I can't remember the last time it was looking good.
I would say of the three amigos, we call them the three amigos: Keir, Emmanuel, and Mark. The three amigos. Didn't they do a movie, The Three Amigos? Was it Steve Martin? Were they in that movie? I think, I don't know which one goes first, Keir Starmer or Macron. I think Mark Carney is starting to feel some of the heat as well, but I think Macron may go first.
Well, he's supposed to leave in 18 months, I believe. That's when the next election is in France, the presidential election. I think it's 18 months, about that. So he should be the first to go. But obviously, with parliamentary systems, you never know. It could be tomorrow that Keir Starmer falls.
I understand he's still in the hospital getting that brace put on his hand there after that handshake.
Sad.
China arrested 30 Christians. Some fear it's the start of a bigger crackdown. You put this in here. I'm not sure what's going on there. China don't like Christians.
The Chinese Communist Party is quite hostile to all religions except communism, I guess. Many people that have thought about it consider communism to be a kind of religion, which I think is quite accurate. But they're hostile to Christianity, Islam, Buddhism even to an extent, though less hostile to Buddhism. But yeah, Christianity is one of those religions, and they're starting to freak out a bit now that they're being selected, they're being punished in a kind of, particularly bad way.
Yeah, somebody says that I'm getting botted here. We get attacked a lot, so I mean that's okay. As the audience grows, which is great, and we're growing it on a bunch of different channels, so I thank you for coming. I mean, of course, they're going to attack us, but you can help us by sharing this information, because you're not going to get this on CBC, and you're not going to even get the interaction. They don't even let you have the comments on, and we're actually interacting live with people because we believe everybody has a right to a voice. And we're doing a series on economic winter. We did one show with somebody, economists, and talking about the coming economic winter. It's a shame that we don't have a lot of prosperity here in Canada, because we should. I was a mine site controller as well. I worked in the resource sector, worked in the forestry sector, two industries that used to be number 1 and 2 here in British Columbia, both in trouble. And, I interviewed recently the finance minister of British Columbia, and pointed out the example of Trilogy Metals there in a Canadian company listed on the TSX that just did a deal with the Americans in Alaska. American Department of War bought 10% of Trilogy. The stock shot up, 300-400%. And here's the difference and why these companies are going to the U.S. to work. Here's the difference. Trilogy Metals has a deposit out there in Alaska. It's 200 in a remote location, 200 miles from like infrastructure. What's America say? We'll build you a road. We'll build you a road, and you'll pay for it later with tolls on the road. For every time you truck metals and that, you'll just pay a toll. So they can pay it from out of future revenues instead of like you got to find the billions of dollars to build the road. The government says, we'll build the road and we'll get it done by next, and they said they'll have it done by next spring. And they said, and here's some money to put in your till so you can drill, baby, drill, and get that mine in production. And I said to Brenda, will you do the same thing in British Columbia? And she said, yes. Show me the way, Brenda. Show me the way. Because there's lots of deposits in British Columbia, man. There's a lot. And I know a lot about the mining industry. I have a lot of friends in the mining industry. Show me the way. Show me the way.
And it's much better positioned, obviously, than the likes of Alaska.
You know what we
much
do
better
have,
to be doing
for
business
the
there.
lightning rod guy, we have some of the best miners, and I interviewed many of them in the past. Some of the best miners, some of the best technology, some of the best companies. People used to come here to raise capital, but most of our mining companies have now been sold to Australia and the United States. And we just sold another one. Teck, one of Canada's prouder companies, Teck, which the Liberals basically kicked in them butt after they spent $1.5 billion in Frontier project in the oil sands in Fort Mac, and they walked away from it because of all the regulation and the red tape and all this stuff. They walked away from $1.5 billion and said it's just unfeasible for them to continue to throw money, good money after bad. That's what they did to Teck. And now Teck's taken over by Anglo-American. Another American company. I think that's an Australian company, Anglo-American, but...
British, isn't it?
I think it's Australian.
American, Brit. No, it's American, I think, but the British are involved in it in some way. I think its HQ is in London.
Right. There you go. But again... Lots of Canadian miners. I interviewed a miner here too, as well, just recently. And they got projects in BC and they got projects in Nevada. Guess where they're putting their energy? You guessed it, baby. Nevada.
They would rather go to the desert than beautiful British Columbia. How dare they?
We are our own worst enemy. It's self-harm. We have so much good, and we fight every day for it. I mean, we fight for a better Canada. I mean, people will say, like, you guys are negative, you're against climate change. That's all nonsense. Just listen to what we're really saying. The carbon thing, the carbon credit thing is the biggest grift going. Go look at Brookfield's, go look at the stories on Brookfield. They've been busted for it. They've been busted for and their carbon credit stuff already.
But it's almost like a lot of these people, they don't realize that there are quite cynical individuals out there and groups of people that will jump on something that everybody thinks is great and morally right thing to do, and they'll go in there with very cheeky, very naughty ambitions, like to make loads of money without doing anything, obviously. And this has been, there are many examples of how this has happened in even recent history. And that's what we have to be on guard against, because climate change policies are extraordinarily expensive. There's so much money there. So you have, just like during COVID, so many cheeky chappies came in and took money for nothing, basically, didn't they? You've just got to be on your guard. And, this is the thing, like, we talk about free media, we talk about, like, democratic oversight and things like that. We really need to be on our guard. And we need to be suspicious of these people that claim that they're going to save the world, and all they need is a modest few $1 billion in exchange. So we have to scrutinize these people.
I worked as a controller at a mine site, and I seen the accounting, obviously. And almost every man there, down to the janitor, and man and woman, there's a lot of females on the site as well, made salaries that could buy houses and buy pickup trucks and feed families. And they were good. It was good money, and we were doing stuff, and it was nickel. It was a nickel mine that I was at, and nickels in everything. Nickels in the pot that you cook with. So, like they say, you don't have a pot to piss in unless you have nickel, right? So, and then, and then you got all these people that just want to stand in the way. Even back then, it was a number of years ago. Back then, the regulation that we had to put up with, I mean, it was almost impossible. Now it takes 20 years to permit a mine, and we're sitting on so much wealth here. And again, Danielle Smith is one of the true Canadians here. She's letting people know that Alberta is sitting on $9 trillion of wealth that is transferred to much of the country. And BC doesn't want it. Nobody wants it. And here you got these climate grifters coming in that want to be able to tax it. That's what they're doing. Mark Carney has said that 80% of it needs to stay in the ground. Why? Norway taps it. It's absolutely ludicrous that we stand in our own way and we strawman Trump. Anyway, that's our show for today. We're back tomorrow at 9 a.m. And if you could help us share this, if you appreciate what we're doing, help us share it, because they took away our audience of 200,000 with Bill C-18. Like I said, the Liberals and the NDP, well, this is all the Liberals, well, I guess supported by the NDP, put together a bill that basically crippled media. And then they've decided to selectively fund some of the media and have them at the begging bowl, although they filled the trough for the CBC, so that CBC can bring you stories like Amazon's tank tops and distract you with nonsense instead of like covering off the real stuff that's going on, right? There you go. I bet you, like, how many stories do you think CBC will do on the real reason that the auto companies are looking south? EV mandate. How many times do you think that story is going to show up?
I mean, they can't even do the basic journalistic due diligence, like that story we talked about earlier, the Prince George thing, how there's going to be an alternative sentencing, basically, or an alternative processing through the criminal justice system available for people based on their ethnicity. They didn't even do the most basic work there. It was just a press release. There was no kind of into finding somebody that says this might not be a good idea, which is what you have to do, for God's sake, if you pretend to be a journalist. So they don't even do the basics right at CBC. Never mind the rest of it.
So here's above the fold on the CBC right now. You can listen in. Should Canada phase out its auto industry? They're setting you up for the auto industry is finished in Canada. Chinese EVs are coming, and that's it for the auto sector in Canada. There you go, setting you up for it. Instead of just talking about the EV mandate. There you go. Thank you for watching Now Media.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.